What's everyone? How are we doing today? I only see one or two people going, oh God, don't talk so loud. This is a good thing. All right, welcome. This is the IDW comic panel. I'm Jake the Army guy from Bob Equestria, but you don't care about that. You care about these fine people right here. We have Heather Breckel. Andy Price. Tony Fleecs. I'm going to mess this up even though you told me 5 minutes ago. Heather Nuhfer?
No.
Nuhfer! I owned up to it, so that makes it okay. No? Okay, I'm sorry anyway. Alright, so we all know, I'm assuming everyone here has read the comics and isn't just here because you followed a big crowd of people. So let's start off with, I always like to make people uncomfortable with panels, so let's start off with this. Tell us something about you that no one knows. Tell us your darkest secrets, and please speak clearly into my lapel. Heather, silence.
Oh no. God, let me think.
Come on, it can't be that bad. I'm not asking you to, confess to the grassy knoll. I'm just saying,
You caught me off guard.
You don't know?
I'm not that deep and dark. Like, usually I'm pretty open about what's the going-ons in my life.
If Heather says the wrong thing, the protective program is going to be shot.
Yeah. Okay, that's true. I apologize. I didn't want to slip your secret identity up down here like that. I apologize.
Everyone can't know I'm a superhero and like in secret.
Hell, that works. So you're a superhero in secret. Awesome. Okay. Anyone else feel like answering that, or I just?
I'm not telling any dark secrets at all. I work for My Little Pony. Like, they will fire me. I've done some terrible stuff in my life, y'all.
Well, at least now we know you have something you're hiding.
I was struck by lightning once. That's not really a secret, but
That's how Tony got his
That
powers.
explains it.
Now it all makes sense.
Got him right in the zipper.
Okay.
Does that mean it's enormous, or just like a shriveled, burned blue?
Alright, PG-13, 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 PG-13.
You can say that PG-13. Sorry.
We're alluding to things we should. Okay, we're gonna move on now. So, I want to know, for those of you that are artists, as I know specifically you two, the artists in color together, how much interaction is there between you all and the writer? Like when you work with Katie Cook, how much back and forth is there between y'all and her to make the comic work?
Well, with me, Katie and I talk constantly. I mean, beyond the comic, we've been friends for years, but I think I could auction this off with the things that are on here about the comics. Katie and I both give each other our room. She says, whatever you're going to do, you're going to do. And I do the same thing with her. But if she's stumped on an idea, we'll do a lot of back and forth. And so it is a co-effort, but she is writer with Big W, and I'm assistant on that part to a little degree. That's her arena. So.
Well, in my case, I usually just talk to Andy. Usually Andy lets me do whatever I want, but sometimes he'll have specific things.
You did it wrong!
You spilled her water.
I spilled her water.
Oh, everything is ruined now. But yeah, usually
I ruined everything.
Cause a disaster.
my only interaction with the writer is when they see it done and they're like, "This is cool," and I'm like, "Okay, that's cool," and that's about it.
Yeah,
Or we have a lot of interaction when we get confused. A lot of times I have to forward emails to Heather because there's times to me I'm like, I'm sorry, I really can't change that color. I'll try.
What about you, Tony? How does that work with you?
I work with a lot of different writers on the micro series and the Friends Forever books. So I usually, unless I know them already, which I have known a lot of them, which is odd because usually in comics you just end up working with a stranger. And I knew Barbara Kiesel, who wrote the Fluttershy book, and I know Jeremy Whitley, who wrote the Friends Forever Discord and the Cutie Marker Shaded book. And we're working on it all now. So we talk, we can sort of text back and forth if I have questions. But mostly that happens just on like panel issues and like what did you mean when you wrote this type things, if things are unclear. I don't really get too wrapped up in this in like story ideas stuff. But yeah, but all those scripts are sort of written, and it's implied that like if I want to change stuff, that I can change stuff. But I generally just draw what they tell me to draw. I don't like to make trouble.
All right, you mentioned the CMC and Discord Friends Forever. I have to know, whose decision was it for the Star Trek reference? That we've all been dreaming about, and everyone knew was coming at some point.
That was the writer. I think he wanted me to do different characters as different, like he wanted Sweetie Belle to be somebody other than who she was, and he didn't want Apple Bloom to be Joey LaForge. But obviously when I had Discord, they wanted to work a Q thing in there, and I think he probably had that idea before he had any other idea in the book. What was weird though was, because you wrote the one that had the other Star Trek reference, didn't you? And it came out like 1 week before, and so I got my comps in the mail and I was like, what is this? I was so excited to shock the world. Like, oh, Star Trek and ponies together, how original and cool.
Sorry.
Yeah. I was really just more upset with our editor that wasn't just like, hey, we should just do 2 Star Trek references in the
We
same
did
order.
it first. We did it first, Tony.
Oh, yeah.
We were the cool ones first.
Oh, but believe me, I know. All the voices in my head were like, you suck now. You thought you were going to be cool. But yeah, that was his idea. The only real sort of contributions I made as far as references in that issue was I decided to make one of the ponies, Axel Foley, towards the end when he's getting yelled at by the chief.
Oh, you're not gonna fall for the banana on the tailpipe?
Yeah. I'm not going to fall for the banana on my tailpipe, man. Yeah, that was it. And then I have like a brony who's my contact when I have questions, like, what would you guys be interested in? And I just email him and say, like, so if the Cutie Crusaders were superheroes, how do you see that going down? And then he writes me back and tells me what he wants to see. We have a tight relationship. Yeah.
Okay. What was the question I just had? Okay, about the for the bookworm series for Heather or other Heather.
Well, we were both
Yeah, you're
fine.
both okay. We'll say the one who wrote it. We'll go like that. The one who wrote it. Again,
Yeah.
were you excited about that? As for when did you come up with that idea for them to like sort of quantum leap into different books, or was that like?
Did it magically show up? Was that what
Yeah.
no, I came up with it.
Yeah. Well, no, I just.
That's
Well,
what I do.
You mean like did Hasbro or Bobby come up with the idea?
Well, no, that is something people wonder about, like how much interaction is between y'all and Hasbro. Like y'all come to them with ideas and the
writers come up with the ideas, and we essentially pitch ideas to IDW, but they go through Hasbro, and everybody has to sign off on it before we write it.
Okay. So, what was your favorite book style or book that you had them jump into?
Oh gosh, Verity and her romance novel. Yeah.
Are you a big romance novel?
No, I've never read one in my entire life, but it's actually a deep dark secret.
Well, no, it's just, I remember that was very well done, so it was like, if you're not pulling from experience, you're just pulling from cliche, which is even better.
Well, if you're going to do it, you have to kind of do it fully. PG-13, I guess.
Well, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Let's see, you had a question?
I just had a question. When is Rarity going to realize that none of these guys are very good for her, and just make the obvious switch?
The obvious switch?
What could that be?
You're not being obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We work on an all-age book.
To switch
We don't know what you're
which
Yeah.
team she's batting for, as it were.
Okay, so,
Well,
Right.
on that note, we actually get a lot of serious inquiries into things like this.
Really?
I'm
I
very
was just being
serious.
silly.
Like,
On the current
no,
arc, we have people arguing about who will die. And they are as serious as can be.
Just everyone Someone dies at the end. Spoilers.
Yeah.
It's not Star Swirl, it's Applejack has to take Rainbow Dash to live on the farm.
She broke her leg, time to take her out back to the line.
But, no, I mean, no kidding, Hasbro knows that the comics can reach a little bit more of the older audience than the show is necessarily intended to. The show is meant for the young girls, and everything else is gravy. It's great gravy, but that's not their necessary intention. It is a commercial, they're here to sell a brand. But with the comics, they're like, that is part of the brand, but they can play a little bit more with the older audience. And I think some of the older audience takes that to granted, like, oh gosh, now we're going to see Celestia with the double-mounted 50 caliber machine guns on.
Yes.
And I mean, we're very serious in the fact that we get these kind of questions all the time. Who's going to die?
And issue 3 of My Little Pony. Remember that with the lovey-dovey?
Oh,
Lovey-dovey Smoochie Land.
You had to bring that up, Heather.
Splats. That's like the most horrifying thing ever done with Pony. Other than G3 Pink Lab, of course.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about, because everything I saw happened off panel. There was just a word.
Implications.
But, we can't do those kind of things. We still have to apply to the basic rules of the show. Celestia is not going to die. Rarity is not going to come out with this big public sexuality issue or anything like that. You're not going to get that.
You just broke hearts of all the experts out there.
Half the fanfics just got canceled.
Exactly.
Stronger now.
One thing I wanted to know about the Nightmare Rarity arc is your portrayal of Luna. She seemed like, when she first came, because this came out obviously after season 2, I think it was the mid of season 3 or something like that, but she seemed a little more withdrawn, and she wasn't quite as bombastic as she was in the show. How did you pay attention to that? Like how she was being portrayed in the show when you wrote that?
Well, yeah, we try to make the characters.
Well, right, obviously.
I have this great idea. I'm just going to change all the characters the way I like them. Yeah, of course I did. The focus was not intentionally supposed to be on her, so we really kind of, I was picky about what I had her say just because I didn't want the focus to be on her. That's
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, for the artists we have here, who is your favorite character to draw in the comics? Of all the mainstays or Spike or the princesses or whatever, who is your favorite one to draw? Or who have you drawn in some of your favorite panels?
Who's your favorite, Joe?
I used to say Celestia every time, because I like drawing her hair. But I think after this last book I did, I like drawing Zecora the best, because she's like 1980s Storm from the X-Men.
Yes!
She's got like a cool mohawk, and her stripes are easy enough. Like when I got the assignment, I was like, I gotta draw stripes, that's gonna be terrible. But it was very easy, and she's cool, and she always has like a cool look. I like Zecora.
I think for me, it varies from project to project. I mean, everyone knows, my favorite ponies are Applejack and Luna, and I love to draw Chrysalis at any opportunity because she runs such a gamut of comedic to horrific. So I can take her to such extremes, but it does change from job to job. I mean, right now, the arc that we're in, I'm really enjoying drawing Celestia. Which before it was like somebody would say Celestia. She's got 92 colors in this strand of hair.
You don't have to.
Yeah, I don't have to color it. So, but yeah, right now is Celestia.
Every time Celestia appears, I suffer. I'm like, how do I do this?
We're gonna do the all Rainbow Dash issue for you.
I
It's
was-
Rainbow and Celestia.
I was so glad that I dodged the bullet of not getting to do the Rainbow Dash micro. I was
It's like-
like, because she's my favorite character, but she's the worst of color. It's terrible.
It'll look like
Yeah, so the guy who actually drew it.
it'll look like a clown threw up.
All right. Who, if you could draw any character doing anything, PG-13, What would you like to include in the comic? Like, it just like, imagine a pose or an activity of a character doing the, like, man, I really wish you could work that in there somewhere.
Oh, I know exactly what I want.
Oh God, here we go.
Well, with the new,
Don't say it. Don't say it. Don't say
I'm
it.
going the exact opposite way you were expecting. Well, when I saw like the new Equestria Girls announced, I really want there to be Dragon Force stuff in that movie. It's like we need to have like Dragon Force and like death metal Equestria Girls.
I want Rainbow Dash playing Angel of Death by Slayer.
That would be amazing.
Yes.
I'm gonna totally just pitch that.
That's friendship.
Can I just write an Equestria Girl like tie-in for like they have a death metal band?
They all got corpse paint on and tattoos. Yes.
They form a bar.
Oh my gosh.
How about a crossover with Metal
This
Opulence?
toilet Equestria.
Yes. Yeah. Cartoon. I mean, we have Cartoon Network comics from IDW. We can totally do it. They won't mind.
Yeah, they're totally cool.
Tony, what do you want to draw in the comics?
I want to do I pitched Bobby the idea of doing like a handbook where like it's an encyclopedia that because they just love to make things that they can sell. So it would just be like your Wikipedia but printed on paper. And but I just wanted to draw the cover because I wanted to do like a big crazy every pony.
George Perez.
Yeah, like the Marvel Universe handbooks where they're all running one direction. Yeah, like that.
Like that.
Wow. Except in profile. That's easy.
Shameless plug.
Sorry.
It's all about easy.
There is something I want to do in the books, and I can't say anything until the current arc is done. Come back to me at BronyCon.
Okay. All right, Heather, what about you? What is your favorite character to write?
It depends on the story. But I love to write for Applejack.
Thank you.
Yes.
I adore her and I love to write her twang.
For what?
Said twang.
Thank you.
Okay.
I've read so many people who try to write Applejack's accent and just completely overdo it. Like, make her sound like a reject from Deliverance. You know?
You have to be gentle.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta find that middle ground.
AJ isn't Southern so much as she is country, and there's a difference.
There is a subtle difference. I've actually noticed in the show, like, their accents come from different regions. Like, Applejack sounds more like he's from Texas. Big Macintosh sounds more Appalachian, if that makes any sense.
Appalachian.
Yeah, exact Appalachian. I apologize. All right, so to follow up that question for you, if you could write, is there anything, like any activity or any action that you would love to just write into the comics?
I really would love to just have a comic that was complete action the entire time, where I don't have any words.
You can draw that one, Tony. That was
The kind of thing you can plan out on an index card. Yeah. Stuff blows up.
Well, you'll win an Eisner because it's artsy and pretentious. And
We're doing that. Jeremy Whitley wrote a silent one, and I'm trying to get Bobby to put me on it. But there's like 2 books that I'm supposed to be on that month. And he was like, you can't do both. And I was like, why not? I can do both.
Get ready for your Eisner, Tony.
Yeah, right? I do my silent My Little Pony issue.
Yes.
Fingers crossed. Or somebody else is going to do it, and I'm not going to be friends with them. Unless it's Andy. I like Andy, all right.
That's actually kind of a neat area where we have a little bit of, I almost say, an advantage over the cast and crew of the show. Is we have an odd balance. A lot of people ask about, when I do the more exaggerated faces or body language, and it's because we don't have Andrea and Tara to inflict the emotion within a scene. So like the idea of a silent book, you couldn't do that on the show because the actresses are going to be, hey, where's my paycheck?
Yeah.
But in a comic, we have the advantage where we don't have to work within a budget or a time limit or things like that. So we have a little bit more freedom in those areas. Whereas the show has these wonderful actresses to inflict incredible emotion. If Applejack says, well, I don't know what's going on. In the book, we have to be like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
It's all
over-exaggerate
got to be
everything.
within the face, the body language, and the mood to express what we mean. Whereas in the show, it could be a dark room, and the actresses can pull it off. So.
Then the animators would get their check.
No, then the animators don't get their check.
Yeah, of course.
Someone gets paid to color the whole thing black, so,
I can do that with a Sharpie.
yeah.
But anyway, so you're talking about y'all's relationship with the show. How, because there's some, like, dissent among the fandom as to how much of the comic is canon
Okay.
to the show. And so we just want to, like, where do y'all fit into that?
As far as Hasbro, and this giant entity in the sky, Hasbro, whatever, is concerned, we are canon.
Okay.
Because they talk with us like, oh, the script that was turned in, you can't do this because there's an episode coming up that is going to conflict with it, or they're too similar, or whatever. So, Katie and I have discussed this, and as far as I'm concerned, you could call us second-tier canon. And by that I mean, the show is number one and will be. We are canon until the show does something to contradict us.
Okay.
If we say that Applejack, when she was 3 years old, had a pet turnip, and on the show they say, no, when Applejack was 3 years old, she had a pet iguana. Well, it's the iguana. So we do, between the chapter books and the comics and the show, Hasbro does try to keep a tight rein on everything so that we're not contradicting each other. There are things that have come down in the past, hey, this pony's going to be appearing and so, could you fit it into the comic? Even just in the background, whatever. So it's little things like that want to make sure that things are copacetic.
That's kind of what people always assumed, is that the show trumps all, and then other things.
As far as I'm
until
concerned, until the show says otherwise, everything is in order. But when the show says this is what is happening, then that's what's happening.
Right.
It's just that simple.
Right. Now, working with Hasbro, do y'all have any interaction with DHX as far as their scripts and your stories? Or do you just get told that, no, you can't do this because this has happened?
We would like to have more. We've discussed that at length with, Jason and Megan and Mitch and everybody here, and I think everybody would like to have a little bit more interaction and knowledge of what the other teams are doing. We work on such radically different schedules from each other. I mean, they're working 8-9 months ahead, whereas like the issue I just turned in will be on the stands in a month. So we're just now getting to the point where the comics have been around long enough that we can start maybe reflecting each other. We'll see. If we get a lot of questions about, is anything that's been in the comic going to be on the show? That's up to them. I have no idea. But again, the schedules are hard to work around.
Now, obviously, not asking for spoilers, even though we would, I'm sure, love them. But how long do you predict that the comic will continue to run? Because obviously, it's sold 1 million copies, so obviously it's very popular. But how long do you think y'all are going to stay involved in this?
What do you think, Heather?
What do I think?
Run while you can.
Well, they're gonna keep making it until you guys stop buying it,
So they're going to keep making it forever.
we'll see.
It is in the comics industry, it's that simple. As long as
It really
sales are
is.
there, they're going to continue making it. They're not going to make it because, oh, well, people really like these characters. If it's not selling, it's not selling. It's the same with the television show. When the ratings go down or people don't care anymore, it's going to go away.
It's like, it could theoretically last a long time. It's like, look at the Sonic the Hedgehog series from Archie. That's been running since I was like 6, and it's still going.
A lot of franchise books actually outlast their source material. So it's possible, but it's up to you guys.
Keep buying them.
I just bought a car. You got to keep buying them.
They got house payments to make, okay? Come on. All right, I think at this point I'm ready to open it up to some questions. So if y'all just raise your hand if you got a question. We don't have a microphone to pass around, so just sort of try to project. Right? You? Yes, right there?
Yeah, I just want to say, first of all, love the work that you guys do on the comics. Just wanted to ask, though, what's the approval process like for getting a culture referenced in the comics? And is there anything that you guys want to include that's just flat out and like you absolutely cannot put that?
Well, think about it like this. Think about Mad Magazine. Mad Magazine has been around for 50 years and has parodied every movie and every TV series and everything. A lot of that is covered under parody law. You know, if you've got a comic book where you draw Jack Nicholson photo likeness, that's getting a little, that's going to start making lawyers a little nervous. But when you have Jack Nicholson pony, that really could be anybody. The implication is there, but that could be anything.
So are we gonna see some shiny like pony?
Have you not been reading the book?
Oh, man.
It happened in this Chrysalis arc. That was the best part of it, was all the horror movie references.
Yeah, I've had some stuff kicked back, but not from editorial or Hasbro so much as just like legal finally said, like, we can't do that, are you crazy? But it was like straight up book cover recreations. So I did a Catcher in the Rye cover and like a Oh, the Places You'll Go cover for covers of the Twilight Sparkle microsuit. And then the people that requested the covers were like, you should do this. And Bobby was like, you should do this. And I did them and I finished them. And then Hasbro said, that's great. And then I got the Hasbro legal and they're like, what do you guys do? Like, you got to make a book for children.
Well, didn't Tom like do some Dr. Seuss kind of covers like for
Yeah,
the
that's-
Twilight Micro? Yeah, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
All right. Yep.
Basically sort of spinning off the same thing that you mentioned that there have been things where you've had an idea for something, but where you had a pitch for something and it just has been said, this can't happen because of like conflict with this or whatever. Is there anything that like, what's like your biggest disappointment? Like, obviously these ideas go to squares because they can't happen, so what are these ideas that can never happen?
Ask me that question at BronyCon.
I wanted to kill Celestia, you tease.
I will say, has everyone, I don't know what everyone has read or whatever, but Katie and Heather and I did the micro series issue for Rarity. And it was a big favorite for us. It was a lot of fun. It was very silly. If you haven't read it, the basic premise is Rarity, due to stress of an upcoming fashion show, the girls are like, we're sick of you. Go to a health spa in
As are we all.
town and relax. And they send her to a health spa and it actually turns out to be a hippie commune. So Rarity's stuck on a hippie commune for a week. And it was a lot of fun to do, and we had a lot of new characters that were great. But the original idea for the story that Katie sent in, she basically wrote Rarity Takes Manhattan. And they were like, we've got this coming up, you can't do it. And she had to completely scrap the script and start from scratch. But I think what she got, we had a lot more fun with. I actually really like the idea that she came up with. But that's ideas, and again, where they try to keep continuity in place.
Yeah,
you know?
and that happened to me too. That happens, I think, in most licensed properties, or at least the ones I've worked on, where you get really excited, you're like, yeah, this is an awesome idea. This is going to be so rad. And then sometimes you get told why an idea doesn't get picked, and sometimes you don't. And I've had a couple times where I've been like, man, that's terrible. But then I watch an episode 2 weeks later, and it's pretty much the same thing. So in a way, it's great because it means you're doing a good job and actually keeping a character and stuff, but it's also freaking frustrating to write and get.
You were like practically psychic with like when we did the bookworm arc, and then the show immediately did like the daring do stuff. And I was like, whoa, people are gonna get mad about this or something.
And I had no idea beforehand.
Yeah. Well, y'all's the Shining and Cadence micro series, that was the one that really put everyone's ahead. Everyone was convinced that Twilight's mom was the author of Daring Do.
Yeah.
And so when that episode came out, again, you crushed souls, you broke hearts.
That was the kind of thing, again, you know, I like to put all kinds of little stuff in the background, and it's not necessarily for the fans, it's to entertain me while I'm
It's you people, I'm bored.
It's like, you know, I'm going to draw Twilight's dad over here making a sandwich because I want a sandwich, you know. But that was, my wife had found something that basically stated that Hasbro had heavily implied that Twilight's mother was the writer of the Daring Do books. So I put this little plaque on the wall, and it's like this big, and you guys can...
But you forget who you're talking about here. We dial in on those details.
And there's a little picture of Twilight's mom wearing an award, and there's an award on the wall with a plaque, and there's a little plaque that says the Daring Do Award. And people went, Twilight's mom wrote Daring Do, and that's the end of it.
Yeah.
And it was,
That's how headcanon works.
It didn't say for writing Daring Do, it said the Daring Do Award. So you could really interpret that as it is the Daring Do Award, like the Academy Award. It's the award for writing excellence or whatever. That's not for I created Daring Do.
But you got to understand that's how headcanons work.
And it's understandable that that's how they took it. But when we do things like that, because of that, I actually try to consciously think, well, let's do this just vague enough that it can be taken many ways.
You're trolling us, basically.
No. Yes.
So you gotta remember, this is a fandom that thinks that it's so quite obvious that Applejack and Rainbow Dash are in love with each other. So based on one episode, so you can't just slip those things in and not expect us to pounce on them.
But I think one of the things that's fun in any fandom, in fan fiction, fan art, whatever, whether it be ponies or Trek or whatever, is they will say this little throwaway bit of dialogue that the fans like latch onto, and there suddenly a history is from that. And we were talking about this the other night. Now, in Trek history, everybody knows that it's James Tiberius Kirk, correct? Yes. When was the very first time they ever said James Tiberius Kirk?
Star Trek 6.
Their very last appearance. Kirk's swan song.
Generations never had.
They said Star Trek. They said James Tiberius Kirk, but we had known it for 30 years.
I like how you know that Darth Vader gets his hand chopped off in a lava pit.
Everybody knew it. It's got to end
From
the
1980.
Right.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, that's the great thing about the show, leaves just enough details out that the headcanons can run wild. And so that's how we do it. We find the little bit of details and think, I wonder what this means. Yes. You have a question?
I do. In regard to your style of, Andy, of just cramming all that beautiful stuff in, I just have to ask, because I'm a total geek who goes way back, are you influenced at all by the wonderful Phil Folio?
I know Phil's work. I had actually met him many, many years ago. It's not so much Phil as I'm old, and so
When's McKay?
not that old.
So you were
Bring me a beer later. That's a Fatty Arbuckle joke. But I learned to read on comic books. I've been buying comic books since they were 15 cents. I learned to read on artists like Neil Adams and Jim Aparo and Steranko and Ditko and Romita and Buscema and all these, and Joe Kubert and all these comic gods, that by the time people like Wendy Pini and Phil Foglio and George Perez came around, I was already deep into, I had no choice, this was what I was going to do. But my biggest influences are, there's an artist named Don Newton, Steve Rude, Bernie Wrightson is very big, and Bernie Wrightson actually, his ink work has influenced a lot of the work of the ponies. An Argentinian artist named Esteban Morato, who used to do Amethyst from Princess of Gemworld. And if you go back 30 years and pick up that comic book, and you're going to go, oh, that's Celestia's hair. That's Esteban Morato. But I think I'm sure Tony and Heather, both Heathers, can verify that you pick up things from everywhere. You say influences, but you get it from everywhere, everything.
You get it from places you don't want to get it.
Yes, you do.
So on that, the rest of y'all, how did y'all get involved in comics in the first place?
You said you weren't going to ask that question.
Yeah.
I said we weren't going to spend much time on it. And notice how I tried to slip it in there surreptitiously, but you had to call attention to it.
I want to talk a little bit the chicken scratch stuff that Andy does. Like That's what they call it, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the technical term for
It
it.
is.
The details and stuff, I generally like don't do it at all because I am always working very fast, and so I don't have time. That's like there's many differences between us, but the one is that like Andy's pages look, there's like a million things to see, and mine it was like good Rainbow Dash, and then she went to the clouds. So I don't ever do it, and then I did it once in the last issue I drew. But they just said like my fiance, I call her Sweet Pickle. So I just drew a pickle.
Now that's a pony name.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So I drew a pickle, and the internet, when one person says something on the
And
internet.
I was like,
Yes.
One person says something, I just think the whole internet thinks that, but somebody thought that meant this gross thing that I like slipped in like a disgusting pickle joke on a pony comic.
Again, we latch onto anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't do that around us.
So I dipped my toe into hiding stuff in the comics, and I think I'm just gonna dip right back out. That was fun.
It is amazing how you people
Is that guy here? Who's that guy?
can
Hi.
latch onto something, and it comes out of nowhere. Like I said, they will find that little bitty throwaway detail that we don't even think about, and they're like, "This obviously means blah 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 blah."
Of course.
Somebody sent me a link to a review of our recent issue where Twilight's kind of wondering about, this whole princess and alicorn thing is new, and I didn't know that this was where my life was going to go. And she's kind of looking at the ground as she's kind of pondering, and there's just a little twig on the ground. This twig is representative of Twilight's life. I was like, no, there was dead white space, and I needed something. But they did. It was this long, probably page-long thing about the twig on the ground. I was like,
Well, it's like, it's like those artsy films where a bag floating in the wind is like a metaphor for the human condition, That's how it works. Yeah.
Like, it's even happened to me, and I just do colors. Like, on the Pirate Arc, there was just these three, like, we already had, like, a Big Mac and a Granny Smith apple, like, they were just hanging out, and in this pirate ship, and then I saw these three little ponies, and they were like, oh, they kind of remind me of the same I'll just color them that way, and I just did it just for fun, and I get on the internet, and everyone's like, why are the CMC there? They shouldn't be there. Why on earth are they there? And I'm like, dude, I just colored them like that for fun. I thought it would be cute.
Are you gonna write a sequel where they have their own adventures?
We should have. That would have been sweet.
I know, right?
That would have been our 4th issue.
I'm sure Heather would agree that.
No.
No.
All right, moving on.
But I'm sure, the Nightmare Rarity arc and the sea ponies and everything, when you're doing this, you can't help but suddenly branch off into other ideas. Oh, this could be a story. This could be, it's hard to focus on, okay, I gotta complete what I'm doing right now before we branch off into 50 other directions. But, when we did the Chrysalis arc, we still have ideas that are branching into other stories, and people come up to me all the time with questions about Nightmare Rarity, and is Nightmare Rarity going to come back? And it's like, you can't help but have those ideas.
The what ifs.
But you have to rein in, okay, what really is the good idea, or are you just recycling what we've already been to?
Right.
You can always go the Marvel and DC route and just say, she's back!
Yeah. Just out of nowhere.
It's a cosmic cube.
We should be able to kill off Celestia in the comic, because if there is any constant in the comics world, there is no such thing as death.
Hey, that's true.
You can, they call up the X Mansion, is Jean Grey there? I'm sorry, she's dead, call back next week.
Heather, where did you come up with all the ideas for the sea ponies and Equestria and all that stuff for the pirate arc?
That was already something that existed. That was one of those occasions where things were recommended to do.
The guy said write something that includes this?
Yeah. So I got, that's one of the really rare sort of occasions, at least in Pony So Far With Me, where we were sort of directed in a
area to go.
Yeah, not so much directly, just pointed, sort of go this way.
Yeah, there was no like overall like, oh, you have to do this or that, but
Right.
there were things that had to be included to go along with I think a board book or something.
Yeah. I want to say I love the main pirate character, how he's so, it looks like he was trying to be Captain Jack Sparrow, but he never quite reached that level of cool. He always, he was always had that little dorkiness to him that kept him from being cool.
Yeah, and Brenda Hickey was the artist on that, and she really did an awesome job of sort of, she had done some really great character sketches and had all these wonderful ideas, but she actually had to take a lot of them out to fit
Yeah,
it.
Brenda did incredible work, and I got to see all of the sketches because Bobby screwed up one day and hit the wrong email. And he sent them all to me, saying, "Oh, we have to revise this." And I'm like, I didn't know. Oh, these are cool.
I was drunk when I did these. I'm secretly Brenda when I'm drunk.
Well, I think it was Katie that said, there are 2 really, really good bottles of wine in the Rarity micro.
Let's call Katie. Katie should be here.
She's like, I'm too busy working at
Yeah, she's got a
Wonderful.
line.
I tried so
All right,
hard.
do we have, someone else have a question? We got off on a major tangent, I apologize. Daring Duke. Yes.
I'm sorry if this was asked before, but do you feel that since you're working with comics, you could be way more liberal with all the candy, with all the cameos that you throw in there? Book example. It's like, for example, the book one alone. Now we know that. Okay, there's a version of Harry Potter in there. There's you got Game of Thrones in there.
You're welcome. That was my request to Amy.
And also, like, the high school art, we all know that was like the Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah, to say anything.
And also, like, you guys make blatant references to Doctor Who,
Yeah.
whereas the show can't.
Right, yeah.
Let's back up right there, because that's kind of where we felt like we were let off the leash a little to be able to play. I mean, the Big Lebowski who's in the show, Train Spotting, Singing in the Rain, Flashdance. There's been little hints, and Star Wars, if it flies over somebody's head, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to get the gag. I mean, like, Discord doing the Flashdance thing is a silly looking thing, but if you know what it's from, it's just kind of an added bonus to the gag. And it's, again, a lot of it is us entertaining ourselves. We don't do these books for you.
Yeah.
We do them for us.
I thought that as I was reading the Shining Armor Cadence series. I was like, I just see them having so much fun writing this. Because I'm thinking all the cheesy 80 movies I used to watch as a kid, and looking in here, it's like, I know that.
You go back to Looney Tunes and the animation studio that they were at, and they were always asked, are you doing these for kids, or are you doing these for adults? And it's, no, we're doing it for us. And that shows, and that's how you end up getting a great product, is the people involved give a damn. They care about it. And that's really the case with this show. I think it's one of the incredible reasons why the show is so popular as it is everybody on the staff cares about it. They know that they have to sell toys. They know that there's a product, and they know that there's a brand, but
There's more to it than that.
there's much more to it. They have to work with that, and like Heather said, that's where somebody calls and says, hey, you have to work a story around Twilight's new car. And that's a challenge, but they care enough about it that you're going to get a fun product one way or another. So
You had a question?
Yeah. Pirates, Bakers, Wood Hockey. Was there any narrative motives that was scrapped ultimately?
Narrative motive?
The narrative motive, like themes, thematic.
motif?
Yeah, motif. That was scrapped in the storyboard stage?
Heather?
You mean like stories that you wanted to do, but
Motifs.
Well, like what he's asking is a story based around a pirate theme, like the Hoofbeard saga, or the '80s theme with Shining Armor and Cadence.
I've never had anything completely scrapped, luckily. So usually they're pretty cool with whatever you want to do. I guess I don't really ever ask for anything insane. So
Yeah, I don't think anybody's like going out of the way to do super weird stuff.
right.
There's a area that you gotta stay in.
Yeah.
And you can play inside that area. They would reject stuff that was ridiculous.
Back there?
Yeah, so I know you guys are all big comic fans. I prefer to read my comics in volume form. I'm waiting for the next volume to come out May 20th. How do you guys prefer to read your comics? Online? Do you buy them when they come out? Do you buy them in volumes? Do you e-readers?
What do you do?
Well, I've recently switched to doing my single issues digitally just because I only have so much room. So I buy the single issues digitally, like through Comixology, and I mean, I prefer to read them physically, but just out of space, I do the individuals digitally, and then I buy the physical trade because there's just nothing that replaces paper. It's like in my own work as a colorist, when I see my work in print, what I saw on screen, IDW does such a beautiful job printing. My colors are so much better than looking at a computer monitor. It's like there's something about the paper that they use that the colors are a million times more vibrant. So it's like, that's why, as a colorist, it's important to me to see stuff in print because you never know what you're gonna get on the monitor unless you like buy like an expensive calibrator or something.
And I think I heard everyone say that y'all actually make more money off printed copies than digital. Of course, that has nothing to do with her saying how much she loves physical copies.
Who makes money with
us?
Yeah, that's
What
what
money?
it is.
Yeah,
What is this you speak of?
I know, it's, yeah.
Heather, what do you do with your books?
I get my trades and I buy single issues of comics I really like, but I'm also very messy and I destroy things easily. So I'll usually buy single issues of comics I really love. Like the only one I'm buying right now is Hawkeye, and of course Dark Comics. We did this. So then I'll go and buy, like I love Hellboy, and so I'll buy any Hellboy trade that comes out and read it a million times. But the single issues are, I don't know, they're nostalgic for me. Like I feel it's like my childhood coming back every time I buy a single issue.
I think for us, it's like, to look at it online, it doesn't feel like it's done.
It doesn't feel like it's real.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a 20-some year habit of going to the comic store on Wednesday, so I still go to the comic store on Wednesday and I buy comics. And then if I really like them, I'll buy the trade, and if I really, really like them, I'll buy the hardcover. And my fiance tells me I'm ridiculous.
And I think with that idea, even if you do read them on your tablet or whatever, if you've never been, go to a comic shop. Not just because I have to pay for my car, but it's going to really open up a fun experience for you to just walk into a comic shop and see all the creativity and all the different ideas that are out there.
And it's my favorite thing when comic shop guys come to me and show, and that My Little Pony thing is really selling. They're surprised. And I'm like, yeah, mother effer, like, of course it's selling.
I know
Ponies,
you guys,
man.
I know with, I was talking to someone on the staff of the show last night, and we're like, the fandom is phenomenal. But when a little kid comes up to your table, that is gold. I had a kid come up to my table with this comic book, and the mother handed it to me, and it was taped together and ragged, and there was part of the cover missing, and she slept with it. And I mean, you feel like that you're the top of the mountain. You can get no higher. You know, 15 guys can come up to you and say, hey, I really liked your work, I really liked your work, I really liked how it worked with this episode or whatever, and a little kid comes up and goes, I like the way you draw ponies. And that's it.
Yeah.
That's the highlight of your day.
It is.
Well, you think back on like what made you fall in love with comics, and then you think that maybe there's a shot that you're doing that for some kid, not even some kid, but like a little girl. Like that's the best thing.
It's well, you were just talking about, you know, the comic shop guys coming up to you, and I've had comic shop guys come up to me and say, you know, now there is a book where the dad who's been coming to my shop for 20 years can bring his little girl. And now she's actually looking at other books 2. So we've gotten another addict into our habit. But I mean, that's, you know, for us, do you know what that's from?
Yes, it's from the movie Fleecs.
Thank you. Okay. All right. But
Nerd Patrol?
Yeah, Nerd Patrol. Well, I hear people say that all the time. It's like, you better know what that's from. But to get this crossover where people who are into comics are now watching the show because they read the book and vice versa, that's great.
Yeah, it definitely has changed sort of the landscape in comics. So I've done a lot of regular conventions because I write other comics, but 9 times out of 10 I'll be in a group of dudes like Tony and
There's a bunch of Tonys.
Like, yeah.
no,
This is pretty much what everybody in
but
comics
they all
looks
look
like.
like,
Beard, balding, overweight.
there's not that many women in
Heather wears a
comics.
toupee.
We all put on fake
Where's-
beards when we do comics.
Yeah, but I'll have be talking to people or not. Usually I get left out of conversations because people think I'm just somebody's girlfriend hanging out. And it's true. And like eventually they'll get around the circle. Oh, like what do you do? And for years I'd be like, oh, I write this comic, and I'd be like, oh, that's okay. And then like starting last year at San Diego, I'd be like, oh, I write for ponies. And suddenly it was like, the circle opened. I got invited in. Everybody wanted to know about the magic and how they can get in on it. So it really has opened it up, at least for chicks like me.
You know, that somebody else asked about how long do they think the comic is going to last, and everything. Going off of what Heather said, and the comic shop guys and everything else like that, how everybody's suddenly interested in how this exploded. We are the #1 independent comic book in the world.
It's been kind of like mind-blowing for me because as a woman in comics, it's really important to me that, not that I don't love you and Tony, but we do have so many women on the staff. And I mean, there's been so much...
Tony and I are the minority, really.
There's been like a lot of heat in the industry lately with people, they're just not big women in comics. And I'm like, we have like it's like whenever I work on Heather's stuff, usually it's a whole girl team. It's like the coolest thing ever. And it's like, it means that we're giving like even more girls in the comics and stuff. So that's really important to me.
And Bobby's like a girl.
And now you have no more work.
Oh,
I'm at the
that's it for Tony.
I was wondering how working on the comics has affected your appreciation for the show. Were you fans of the show before you started working on the comics?
I think Tony's the one that's been affected.
I would agree with that assessment.
Yeah, I had no idea. I didn't see anything. I saw one episode in the hotel room before I got the job. It was sort of a fluke. And I didn't, like, I had heard that there were fans, and then I got the job, and all of a sudden I was like, holy crap, this is a whole thing. Like,
What have I gotten myself into?
And I was delighted to find out that the show was really good, because that was against, like, I figured I would just have to watch what, like, if it would be like if I got a job doing Dumbo's Circus, or some like kid Disney show where I would just have to watch a show that was horrible. No offense to Dumbo's Circus fans out there.
Is there another question back there? I saw someone's hand up back there. Yeah, you.
What was the first comic series or issue you ever owned?
Batman.
Yes.
Batman. To this day, I celebrate Bruce Wayne's birthday. February 19th. Would have been 19. It's like 1918. Wow. Something like that.
All right.
I think it was X-Men for me. My dad was super into comics, so that's how I got into comics.
My dad and my brothers were really into comics, and I was allowed to get 2 comics if I was really good at church. So, I was living in a really small town, and so I would get the Muppet Babies and Spawn.
Yes. Now that's a childhood right there.
It's like, how old were you when you got into Spawn? I was in 5th grade when I was reading Spawn.
Oh, I was way too young.
So my comic shop, when I first went there and got comics, the MLP comics were at the back, one little space on the shelf, and that was it. Now, I mean, they're front and center, right there. They take up a whole aisle pretty much, right in front of the till. So,
We outsell The Walking Dead.
yeah. So, are you guys kind of surprised at just how big it's gotten? And it's like, I know with the show, I mean, they were kind of surprised at just this sudden following. So, were you surprised at how big it's gotten for you guys too?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I was talking to Andy.
We thought everything I'd ever do is going to be awesome.
Like 2 years ago, me and Andy were just guys that did sketch cards, and now people that wouldn't talk to us at conventions, we sell much better than that, So it's ridiculous. It's super cool. It's surprising.
And I feel like all ages used to be kind of like a dirty word in comics. I mean, used to it was just to make a quick buck, and it's like now you have Pony's great, the Adventure Time book is amazing, the regular show book's amazing. It's there's all these awesome all ages titles. So I'm not surprised that we're doing well. It's awesome to see.
All ages still is not a friendly word within the comics industry. In fact, there's a little battle going on between the heads of some of the companies.
We're not doing real comics, Andy.
We're not doing real comics.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
We won't say who it is.
I will.
Oh, I've worked for the company.
All right, let's start the drama. Here we go.
This came out about 2 months ago, I guess, something like that. And it was the head of...
Eric Stevenson.
Yes, it was Eric Stevenson. And he came out and he basically did this big speech at a comic ceremony talking about how licensed comics boil down to crap. It's disposable. It's disposable. They are not real storytelling. They are not innovative. They are not creative. They're not gonna. They don't matter. They are not real comics.
So basically, this guy's an idiot.
He danced around the words of an. He didn't say MLP or Adventure Time, but that is exactly. It was very clear what books he meant.
Because y'all got so big that now they have to kind of answer to it.
And I got to say, I was very, very proud of our company owner, Ted Anderson, who immediately came out and was like, these books may not be creator owned or whatever. They may have come from a brand, but there is just as much work, there's just as much effort that goes into creating these comics as Batman, Superman, whatever.
Marvel and DC now are sort of, they have to figure out how to answer to ponies. I've heard about discussions in the offices where they go I don't know, how do you do that?
The whole thing made me upset because as a kid, the most important comics to me were Sonic the Hedgehog and Archie's Tim and Ninja Turtles, and that made me into a lifelong comic fan. And it's now I work for the industry and I'm buying books by that company that insulted us.
We are the new gateway drug.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Although, don't forget the original, that Turtles originally came from the comic.
Yeah.
Turtles
It's
came
Barrage
from
stuff is
a
awesome.
parody comic that was not meant to do anything. It was a parody of Dark Knight Returns.
And Daredevil.
And Daredevil, yeah.
Yeah, you.
So I just read one of the books that Marvel and DC ain't got none on this. So what does Marvel and DC got what they don't got?
Are you asking how are the other comics better than the My Little Pony comics?
Yeah.
I would say that they're not. I mean, I can't speak for you. I don't know my thing, but it's ponies. What's better than that?
To be honest, I can't answer that question because I cannot agree with this man's standpoint. It doesn't matter if you have a book where the character is cold-blooded and ruthless or tactical or whatever. It doesn't matter if it's comedic or dramatic or horrific. As long as it's a good story, then it's a good story.
Exactly.
So we're going to see MLP/Transformers crossover.
I think it's closer than I'm right on the edge of making it happen.
Talk to Tony about the t-shirt.
It's called fan fiction.
Hot Topic's gonna publish your whole comic as a shirt.
Yeah, no, I just did a lithograph that's going to be My Money Transformers for the next one. Last year at BABSCon they did a comic. This year they're going to do a set of posters. So I did one, and Hasbro's into it. Like, they like the way that I do it. So it's just a matter of like pushing them into actually doing like a comic, which I think I could probably do. Although I'll do it and then I'll immediately want to kick myself for having to draw Transformers, which are like 1,000 times harder to draw. You got all kinds of parts and squares and buttons and stuff.
I actually have two quick questions. One came from something you said earlier. Is Luna's Apostle Tiberius, was he named after Kirk Tiberius?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. One of our goals when the micro series came out, it was like, Bobby, I get Luna, and nobody else gets Luna. He's like, we're not doing Luna. Yes, you are. And originally the plan was the micro series was only going to be the main 6. It was only going to be 6 issues. And you guys, with your sales and buying and the reviews and everything, we were like, okay, let's expand it into the secondary and tertiary characters. And I was like, then by God, I get Luna. And my goal with Katie is, again, I give her a room, but I was like, you don't write an issue without giving Luna a pet. That was my demand, is Luna has to have a pet. And then she was like, well, I'm going to give Luna a pet plant. No.
Yeah.
And then she was going to give Luna a pet rock. And luckily, we ran into Megan at San Diego, and we were discussing, I said, I was like, I don't want a pet rock. I wanted a possum. I really did want a possum. And we said to Megan, Katie's going to give her a pet rock, and Megan was like, skip the rock. we got something planned. So, and I wanted to do a possum because, you think of Luna, you think, oh, it's going to be a bat, or it's going to be some creepy night animal, or a raven or something. I was like, there's other night animals. Let's do that one hanging from the tree. Let's do possums. And I raised a possum. Not long before we pitched the series, I fostered a baby possum rescue, and it was amazing. And I was like, I want a possum. I want a possum. I want a possum.
All right, finish this, but then I want to have a question where somebody asks the whole story of how you fostered a possum.
And then at New York Comic Con, we had been talking about the name. It was like, what do you name a possum? And it was like, it's Luna. It's got to be something kind of epic, but the whole idea of a possum is kind of stupid. So it was like, and she was drawing her little $5 mini paintings with her mile-long line, and she went, Tiberius. And she went, we're both Trek fans, so that's for us, and Luna can call him Tibbles. You guys have to campaign for Tiberius to show up in the show, even if it's swallowing
Hey, if nothing else, he can frighten Flash Sentry away. I know y'all hate him.
The same issue we said that Flash Sentry was afraid of possums. So.
I think this is going to be our last question. You go ahead.
I'm sorry. Heather Nuhfer.
Yeah, good job.
Show off.
Did you write the story where Daring Do comes out of the book before Daring Don't? Because I was just curious about that.
It was all mishmashed at the same time.
Okay,
That's
because
my
that
answer.
can still be reconciled. We can say that's just a fictional Daring Do. Then
Right.
it's still a figure.
Right.
And then we have the things that I have to think of, that's whatever.
Okay, I think that's all the time we have. Is there anything final y'all want to say to everyone here?
This is good, guys.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I'm just curious, how much promotion does Hasbro give the IDW comics?
Quite a bit.
Okay, good.
We're in
Good.
grocery
Okay.
stores now.
So you're not like a redheaded stepchild or anything?
No, they as far as Hasbro goes, I mean, this is their franchise. They're going to publicize any aspect of it that they can.
Especially when it's a success.
DVD came with our Sunset Shimmer comic.
Real quick, I'm gonna blow you guys away. Did you know that we were supposed to introduce Equestria Girls?
No.
It was, the plan was, we did a big conference call with Hasbro, and Katie and I felt all cool. Conference call. And the idea came across, and you could have heard a pin drop on the line. You know, oh, we're gonna turn them into people. But the plan was, the chronology was, okay, we're working on Equestria Girls to do as a DVD. And we are going to announce it at San Diego Comic-Con. That's when it's going to be one of the big Hasbro brand announcements. And we want something that people, after hearing the announcement, can pick up to see. So we want to give the announcement and then send people over to the IDW booth and be able to pick up this comic book so that they have an idea of what's going on. So we were told we want an origin for Sunset Shimmer. And you know, Tony did the Equestria Girls annual, and the story was reprinted there, so it's easy enough for you guys to find. But there was a San Diego exclusive issue with another 8 pages with Sunset Shimmer's origin, and at the end you see her in the Equestria Girls version. Hasbro ended up pushing things ahead, so by the time the book was done, the world already knew about Equestria Girls. But that was originally the plan. It was supposed to be the comic, then the comic at the end of the announcement together, and we were going to be the Z's, and then the movie was going to be out. So there you go.
All right, that is all the time we have. I want to say to all 4 of you, thanks for coming out here and putting up with our, general Brody weirdness. We really appreciate it. We appreciate you coming out here.